Welcome to Escape Velocity, a podcast to unpack the 0 to 1 journey of founders who have built successful, scaled businesses today that we all admire. Going from formation stage to product market fit is often the most messy and least linear part of the startup journey. In this series, we dive into the early parts of the founder journey and understand the lessons of successful founders who have gone from an idea to finding product market fit and beyond. Today, we're at Glean, where we're speaking with the CEO, Arvind Jain. Glean is powering the future of AI in the enterprise and was most recently valued at $4.6 billion. This is a special episode as this company is one that I got to partner with when they were just getting off the ground. Arvind, we've known each other for a long time. When I first met you, Glean was just an idea in your head. Walk us through, what did it feel like at the time when you were still at Rubrik, the company was hyperscaling? What, on a personal level, gave you an itch to start a new company?
Yeah, mostly it was actually the problem that we were facing at Rubrik. So Rubrik actually grew, in this modern SaaS era. We started in 2014. By the time it was 2018, we had 300 different cloud-based SaaS applications that we were using to run our business. And as we sort of grew, both in terms of our data and the number of systems, where we kept that data, but also the number of people that we were in the company, we found that productivity actually started to go down. The people were struggling inside the company. Our numbers, whether you look at how many commits or lines of code an engineer writes, on a daily basis, or you look at how much product our salespeople sell, all the metrics were going south. And part of it is expected. As the company grows, you can't sometimes lose that level of productivity. But I think there's something more to it in our case. We were actually seeing very dramatic drops. We were, for example, there was a product release that we were trying to, we had a goal of trying to get them out every 3 months, and we're sitting on it for 14 months and still struggling to actually ship it out. Part of it was we did a survey, asked people what we can do better. And one thing that we learned from it was that people were really, really feeling lack of enablement. They felt that they didn't know how to do their work. They didn't know where to go and find things, who to go and ask for help. And it was not surprising to me. I was feeling the same way. Whenever I had any questions, I just didn't know where to go and look for the answer to that question. And so that sort of got me thinking that we had to solve this problem. We had to buy, and I'm a search engineer by training. So the first thought when people complain to me that they can't find things inside the company and it's causing them productivity loss, well, we should put a search engine over all of our company knowledge. So that's sort of, we started to look for a product for that. Went into the market, and to my surprise, we found out that there was no product that we could buy that would solve this problem for us, that would connect those 300, SaaS applications that we had and all the data inside of them. And as we sort of dug a little bit more, I discovered that it was not just us at Rubrik. There's so many other fast-growing companies, all facing the same pain. And so that sort of got me excited. Initially I was not thinking about I'm going to start a new company for this. In fact, it felt a little bit synergistic with our own product at Rubrik, because at Rubrik we would bring all data of a company together, not for a purpose of searching things inside of it, but actually to keep it safe. So I thought that, we could actually do one more product inside our company. But then as you sort of think more, you realize that these are two fundamentally different businesses. So that sort of got me the itch to sort of just go and solve this problem and build this product.
And on a personal level, how did you think about making that jump again? Because you had just gone through this pretty rigorous and amazing journey at Rubrik. How did you know that you were ready for another challenge?
Well, that was easy. I love building products, and actually, when you start a company, the first few years actually are the most fun for me from the point of view of building a great product, bringing it to life. So I was super excited. It didn't feel to me that hey, am I ready to sort of go on that long journey? I'm familiar. Building a company takes a long time, but I've also learned how to enjoy the journey. So it doesn't feel to me that I have to sacrifice 10 years. To me, it's sort of more I'm going to enjoy the next 5 years or 10 years building this product.
That was amazing. And I remember when in your first pitch deck, the company was called SIO, and you had this amazing, compelling vision for enterprise search. But as you referenced, if you look back over the last 10, 20 years, many people tried this idea of enterprise search, and frankly, never really succeeded. What do you think you saw at that time that was different, or that other people might have missed and that you saw clearly?
I don't think anybody missed anything. When we started SIO, I mean not Glean, the world was very different from when the last generation of enterprise search companies tried to solve the problem. Like one thing that happened in the course of that more than a decade is we sort of moved into this SaaS world where as a business, all of your information and data are in these cloud-based SaaS applications, and there are great APIs that actually are available to you to actually see what data lives inside those systems. So building a search product for something that was necessarily a consulting play in the past, because to actually even just get hold of all the data that you want to search over, you have to spend a year working with the customer, trying to figure out in their data center, where are the storage systems, where to actually fetch that data from, no standard APIs. So it was a very difficult world to actually build a product, and very difficult compared to in the post SaaS where all businesses are homogeneous. We could easily tap into all of the enterprise data. So that was one difference in what made me believe that finally you can build a product company in this space and not a consulting company.
I remember writing the investment memo around that time, and the idea that the average company, I think, had over 200 SaaS applications in its organization, and you would think that this digitization would actually create more ability for collaboration, but it had done the opposite, where more and more data silos had essentially been created. So in addition to the being in the right moment, I think, to start SIO and Glean now, I think the other opportunity I saw when we were talking back then was that you had this perfect founder market fit in your own archetype, in the fact that you had worked 12 years as a distinguished engineer at Google, and then started Rubrik and really understood the data infrastructure problem and been sold to some of the largest companies. When you thought about architecting the founding team around you, what were the key things that you were looking for in terms of a complementary skill set?
So I knew that building a search product is very difficult. It's a product that requires a lot of investment. It'll require patience, and it requires that deep expertise in how you understand knowledge. And in fact, AI is a big part of search. It was even before this current euphoria around AI and language models. Search has been the largest AI application in the world for the last 3 decades. And so we had to we knew that we need to have a right team. And my first instinct was to actually tap into the best people that I'd worked with and learned from at Google, and bring some of them over to start Glean with. And so we that's exactly what we did. In our initial founding team, 3 of us had actually worked at Google on search for over a decade, and those experiences actually proved out to be very valuable in building the search product.
And I remember during that first period, you were mostly heads down building the product, which in some ways is counterintuitive to the common thesis in Silicon Valley that you should try to get a product out there quickly. Tell us a little bit about those early months. What was important getting infrastructure-wise right before you started to expose this to any potential customer?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that when we started Glean, I don't think a lot of the market believed in what we were doing. Search was thought of as a important problem, but not a necessary one to solve. A lot of CIOs would also tell us the same, that they understood completely that this is a problem that has to be solved, but they felt that there were some other problems always. When you look at the priority stack, we would actually always go down. And so we were not when we started, it was not that we had screaming demand for our product. But at the same time, I knew that everybody who I have interacted with, they all had this pain. So I knew that ultimately, we'll figure out a way to educate the market, evangelize the product, and achieve business success. So, but we were willing to take our time. We will say that we will only get one chance with our customers, and we can't rush into like let's build a quick prototype and give it to people because this is a wall-to-wall product. Everybody inside a company is going to use this product, and most of them will have no relationship with me or our team. And so like unlike in some products where you can actually work with your champions and they actually help you build the product, they're patient with you. We didn't have that luxury. We had to actually build a product that would create the best first impression. And so that's why we chose that path of, well, let's go and build a really solid product, and once it is truly ready, when we know that people are going to love it, is when we were to actually start selling it.
And I want to come back to that point, but before that, when you thought about the design choice on that initial fundraising as well, you went and raised what looks like a traditional Series A at that point to fund the company. And Rubrik actually, interestingly, did a very similar sort of approach. Tell us about, as a founder, how do you think about the right amount of capital to get started with, especially, you have an ambitious opportunity like you had in enterprise search, but what was the right amount of capital? How did you think about that when you were getting started?
Yeah. So my model has been that, if I, at any point in the company, I want to actually, have a roadmap to build technology for the next 2 years without having to worry about running out of capital, or would I be able to actually hire the right people or not. So and so that's important because building a startup is full of there are a lot of difficulties that you run into. There's there are a lot of stressful situations, and the one thing that you want to avoid is also that hey you don't know how to actually make payroll for your team, right? So I personally have never really thought about that. Hey, let's try to raise the minimum amount now, and then achieve some success so that we can raise more with less dilution in the future. That's not the I don't like that style. Yeah. I would rather raise so that I can focus on building the company, and there's enough runway so that once we hit some good milestone, that at that point we can go and raise more capital for the future, and we still have enough runway and we have enough proof in the system that we'll be able to, we'll be successful in our next fundraise.
Yeah, I think that's the right way to be thinking about some of these more deep technical problems as well, in terms of just having enough ability to hire the right people around you to be able to go that initial distance. And like you said, build performance search that can actually feel like magic in the end customer's hands. Back to that point about how do we think about building in the initial phases, when did you start to get comfortable with the idea of exposing this to your early customers, and how did you solve the chicken and egg issue of that you needed their data to make it feel performant, but people are oftentimes sensitive about exposing data to a startup, especially sensitive enterprise data?
Yeah. So two things. So first, we were able to dog food, and so we're also building our own company as we are building this product, and so we were using the product from day one, or rather day one after we got the first version of it ready to be used, and so we got a lot of confidence in our product just from our own daily use. And then now we're ready, so we go to our customers. But imagine what I'm telling our customers. I'm telling them that, hey, give me all of your company data, and we're a startup. We'll take all of your company's data and we'll make it searchable for you. And it's not a comfortable conversation for any CIO, to sort of trust a startup and not just give them data from one application, but all of their different applications. So we actually did see a lot of challenge, and one of the things that we made a decision on early on, which was actually contrary to the SaaS world that we lived in, is we said that we'll actually run Glean in a single tenant mode, that where you can as a customer you'll be able to deploy Glean inside your own cloud environment. So it's still we're still 100% cloud, but we allowed our customers to run Glean within their own environments, because then they're not worried about hey, where is my data going, and do I need to trust the startup or not? And so that allowed us to sort of solve that chicken and egg problem. We were able to actually get these initial design partners, and we thought that would be a model that we would keep for some time, and then after that we'll switch to regular SaaS. But then we realized over time that actually that's a pretty good model, for many other reasons. And so today, we do support both. Glean runs, in our SaaS cloud, or it can run in our customers' own, their own VPC, and and different companies choose one option or the other based on their security policies and comfort. But that's sort of like what the early journey looked like. We got people comfortable with that deployment model.
And one of the other interesting design choices you guys made in the beginning, which was actually I think counterintuitive, and I know a lot of us on the board were thinking very differently around how do we think about Glean being more functionally focused versus being a horizontal platform. And I think the natural intuition when you're starting a company is how do you scope the problem to be smaller? How do we stay focused with a specific persona? How do we get to market quickly? But I know you were always sort of ardent about the fact that you wanted this to be a horizontal platform. Yeah. Tell us more about that. How did you, now that's feels like an obvious choice, but back then wasn't. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, part of it is, what we want to build. Yeah. And, we didn't want to build a company which focused on a small user population inside the company because, see, our origins are, I saw the pain, it was felt by everybody inside, in Rubrik, where I was, whether you were an engineer or a product manager or a customer support person or somebody in IT or HR or sales. Information, we're all knowledge workers. We all have to work with a lot of different information inside our work, and it's hard for each one of us. So I actually felt that there is a need that is pervasive, across the enterprise. It was potentially true that many of those teams had no budget to actually buy a product, and so conventional wisdom would be that maybe pick the support team, where they can show direct bottom line or top line improvement to by buying a product like that. So there was that pull to be functional specific, but I think ultimately sometimes you make smart business decisions, sometimes you make passionate decisions, and I think in this case for us it was more about who we want to be. Yeah. And we want to help every single worker in every single enterprise in the world.
And tell us a little about those early design partners who did end up taking the leap with you all. What did that feel like when you got the product in their hands? What was some of the early signals about what was working, what wasn't working, what you had to nail to make this a success?
When we started, some of our early customers, Confluent was one of them, and the feedback was interestingly largely positive, from day one for us. I think we had put in a lot of thought, and I think also the bar was not particularly high because search was so terrible, in each individual application, and also of course people didn't even know where to go and start and look for things. So we got generally positive feedback, but also very lot of useful feedback too. Some of it was about that's how we learned what applications we should first connect with and get content from. So a lot of that prioritization happened directly via customer feedback because they would tell us that, hey, our people spend a lot more time in these 6 different applications or 10 different applications. And so that would actually that was some of the initial feedback that we would get was build more connectivity into the enterprise. Another piece of feedback we got was that we realized that even though search is such an obvious product and people actually will get help from it, but it was not easy for us to remind people that we exist as a product, and we had to work, do a lot of hard work on figuring out how do we stay in the flow where people are when they have questions, they're doing some, they're in some task, some job, that they're actually working on. So the one of the feedback that we would get from people was, again from the usage, was around that, and so we sort of started this initiative that we called internally Glean Everywhere, which means that we have to actually go to people, and it won't be the other way around where they will come to us, despite us having a useful product for them. So we build these integrations into Salesforce or Slack and Confluence and many other systems where you could actually experience the Glean right from within those systems.
No, those are great, phenomenal anecdotes. And along that journey, when did you start to feel like you had found product market fit? Was there an aha moment beyond the metrics where you said, at this moment it feels like we're clicking?
I think the real confidence comes from customers and users. And so when we started to see, one, that people were willing to pay a good amount of money for this product, that sort of validates the problem for you. So I think like for me, when we hit 50 customers and a few $1 million in ARR, and we started to see some people unprompted, talk about how much they love Glean on LinkedIn and Twitter. That is when I felt that, okay, yes, I think finally, I think we have educated the market enough and people love it. And I think the reference network started to sort of, get activated. We were getting new people coming to us saying that, hey, we've heard good things about your product and would like to get a demo. So those things all happened. I would say in 2021, we started to see pretty good feedback in the market on these fronts, and we knew at that point that yes, the direction that we've chosen, that it's going to work.
And you mentioned to me something once which I always found interesting, that you said that as Glean scaled, you felt like the early days in some ways were easier than some of the stuff you saw at scale in terms of the CEO job in particular. Curious if you can expound on that a little bit further. How did you feel like your role started to change post product market fit as you started to see a different level of scale in the organization versus some of those earlier days that we've been discussing?
Yeah. I think the job of the CEO, it changes every year. And I think different people may find different stages easier or more difficult. It depends on who they are. For me, since my primary background is in building products, so I find the first 2 years very, very comfortable because we're building a product. And the great thing is that we don't have to really worry too much about selling it yet, because we don't we're in the development stage. So, but once you are, once you have a product, now you got to sell it. You got to generate some success with it. And once you sell enough, then, and you raise more funds, and now there are even higher expectations on you to grow your business another 10x faster. So in some sense, building a great company is about tackling a new challenge, at every stage, every year. And now we're in such a dramatically different place, as a business. It doesn't make it any easier, but it's different, and different in the sense that we're no longer trying to make a category. We're no longer trying to evangelize and telling people that they should buy a product like Glean. Now everybody wants a product like Glean already. They got educated, they want it, and we have to compete in this market now, along with many other people. Before we didn't have to compete with others. So I think the challenge is always different. I do feel that I think partly as you grow, as you achieve success, typically your workload increases, the span and the diverse nature of your work also increases, and you have to be very careful in planning your organization and leadership, and that's sort of one thing that I felt personally, that I was late to take actions on certain things. So if you're late in terms of building your team, then all of that works in greater magnitude, and scale falls on you. And so I sort of struggled through that more in the, I would say, in the fourth and fifth year of our company than in the first 3 years.
Yeah, no, that's very insightful. And you touched upon this idea that for a long time Glean wasn't an N of one company, and still is in many ways, but there's more folks seeing what Glean has been able to carve out, and obviously trying to compete. But tell us a little bit about this idea of selling an ROI equation to an end customer when you're in the productivity space. Ultimately, how have you guys crafted a narrative with these large customers who have been buying Glean around, here's how we actually put a number behind the impact that we can have in an organization?
Yeah. So I would say today, when you think about AI, you have, people coming in with, I would say three different sort of frame of, mind. One of them is there are folks who believe that we need to invest in AI. Every company is going to go through a massive transformation powered by AI in the future. In fact, what the company looks like is going to be very different in the future than today. And so they want to start on that journey today. And, they understand that to actually drive that transformation is going to be driven by their people. So first they have to transform their people. So giving them some AI tools, making them AI fluent is something that they see as a necessary thing to do. And so they're doing it. And so they'll buy Glean, because Glean is the fastest way for you to bring useful enterprise AI to all of your employees. We make it easy for you to make all these amazing AI models work on your enterprise data in a safe and secure way. So they buy Glean without any consideration for ROI, right? They think of it as a fundamental investment that they have to make today, for the returns in the future, and they feel it's too early right now to even judge and evaluate. They're not seeing this as a ROI; they're seeing this as education and getting ready for the future. So that's sort of one set of customers who come with that viewpoint. Then there are others who are very they're focused on metrics, but they also inherently believe that that people spend a lot of time internally trying to get answers to their questions, trying to find information. There are enough studies that are out there in the market that show that knowledge workers spend a third of their time just looking for information. And then they probably spend another half of their time trying to process that information, synthesize, analyze. And they know that with a great AI and search product that they will be able to shave that time. And even if you win 10% of that time back, you can do a productivity math, and Glean will easily pay for itself. We can show a 10x ROI just based on that time savings. There's a lot of proof in the market today now, with Glean deployed to hundreds and hundreds of enterprises, that we save people about 3 hours of time every week. Customers have done their own studies, which shows the same. We also commissioned a blind study with Forrester, which came back with our customers or our users basically sharing that Glean saves them 110 hours of time every year at least. So then you use that as the basis of ROI, time savings, and bring Glean. You fundamentally believed in it, and that actually is enough value, time savings to sort of help you make that decision. And then the third one, but neither one of this is enough, because ultimately people can also ask you that, okay, so if I save time, so what, right? Somebody's going to get, spend more time, making more fancy cup of coffee with that extra time. So you have to look into hard metrics. So if you start to dig deeper, so Glean, it helps your engineers, it helps your support people, helps your sales people, all of these folks, right? And there are existing business metrics that companies have, that track the performance of these different divisions. Let's take customer support as an example. In customer support, you track metrics like how long does it take to resolve a case, or how many cases one support engineer can resolve on a daily basis. And so when you deploy Glean, we actually show direct impact on those metrics. In fact, we've deployed to one of the largest telecom companies here in the US. Their entire, I think over 100,000 customer service agents use Glean on a daily basis, and they've seen 45% improvement in case resolution time. That translates to tens of millions of dollars in ROI for them. That's hard ROI. It actually has allowed them to repurpose some of the, the team to do other work. It has reduced their headcount projections for the next year. So you can actually also see AI making impact like on existing business metrics. So it's a spectrum. So it's a long way to sort of tell you that like the market thinks about AI in many different ways, all the way from aspirational and educational to hard ROI.
No, it's a great way to put it. And the interesting thing about Glean is that we had product market fit even before the AI moment, right?
Yeah.
And so, and part of it I think was driven by the fact that people viewed it as their home screen. Like this idea of Glean everywhere really resonated, and it became such a high usage product, and akin to a Slack or any of these other unique and of one type of companies. What do you think now, looking back? I know it's been a crazy 2 years or so with everything that's happened in AI. What did the AI moment, especially with the release of ChatGPT, really unlock, you think, for Glean, and why was it such a perfect moment for where Glean was already situated?
Yeah. So, well, ChatGPT, is a product that's a product like nobody had seen before. Like the things that it could do are things that, as humans, we felt was reserved for humans. It was only our capability to reason like that. So it was incredible, and it just took everybody's attention. It had great mind share. It became synonymous with AI and language models, and when people saw that real power, where AI can actually take a large amount of information and really meaningfully answer questions for you using that knowledge and synthesize that information in useful ways to you, people started to imagine that hey, if I had something like that in my company, like if my employees had something like this where they could go to a place and ask questions and get quick answers to whatever questions they have using all of your company's knowledge, that would be so phenomenal. So they drew that sort of connection from ChatGPT, that I could see something like that in my enterprise. Only if I had a model that was trained on all of my enterprise data, I can see how it's going to unlock massive productivity wins, right? And now, luckily for us, that's exactly what our product was already, right? And our product actually got better with these models. Before ChatGPT, or rather before GPT 3.5 and the models of that quality, we were still able to use language models very effectively to connect people with the right information, surface the right information back to them, and also extract answers from knowledge for them, but not generate. We were not able to generate answers with GPT 3.5, and we could actually do a great job generating answers as well. So basically, we were able to build a product very quickly, enhance our core search product with the power of generative capabilities of LLMs, and build exactly what everybody was looking for. So it was like a 180-degree turn for us as a company. We switched from a place where we always had to actually convince customers that you need to invest in this for your employees, for their productivity, to, well, people are already looking for exactly this thing that we have. So it allowed us to sort of then change the trajectory of the company, significantly increase demand for our product, and made us also feel comfortable to actually go and invest significantly in our go-to-market.
Yeah. And I think it's an incredible way that you describe not only the moment, but also how that changed every CEO's mindset up and down for the Fortune 500. And we're seeing that obviously in terms of the pull for Glean. Curious, have you seen a change now, given that we're more than maybe 2 years just into this AI movement, where folks at these larger enterprises are thinking about how do we actually start to build our own AI capabilities and power rather than always relying on third parties or Silicon Valley? And I know Glean has actually a pretty unique opportunity to help serve that, but tell us what you've heard, and then tell us how that's informed some of the product decisions you're making now.
Yeah. Well, so first, if you think about any business, AI efforts, you can actually divide them into two different parts. One is I build products for my customers, for my consumers, and I want to make those products smart using AI, more capable using AI. So that's part one of how when people think about AI, they want to use AI to make their own products better. And part two is that you want to use AI to make your business, your organization more efficient, and by actually making sure that you're utilizing all the great AI tools and helping your employees sort of accelerate their work with it. We typically focus on the second part. And then what we have heard is that so far, while there was this great promise of AI, it has taken longer than initially expected to generate a lot of business value from it. Businesses discovered that it's really hard to actually make these models work inside the enterprise. Some of the challenges that they ran into, companies that didn't work with us, companies that took these open, or rather these models that are trained on the world's public knowledge. When they tried to make it work inside the enterprise, they realized that these models didn't know anything about the enterprise, and so then this these other technologies like RAG and other things started to come into play, where companies try to sort of build these retrieval systems, build data ETL pipelines, bring a lot of knowledge from their internal enterprise systems, put it into the system and hook it up with AI. And the whole thing proved to be harder than what they thought it would be. There's also a lot of effort initially in terms of businesses wanting to train models inside their company, which also hasn't panned out because enterprise data is very different in nature. It's not open to all. It's very privileged. You can have a document that only you have access to, so you can't dump that into a model that you're going to let other people use, right? So basically, we went through this, this 1 or 18 months of real struggle to try to make this thing work in the enterprise, and as people went through that experience, more tools, more enterprise tools got built, including ours has been available for a while, and so folks realize that they need to actually spend again, if you are a company in retail or manufacturing, you don't necessarily have to go and build all of the AI yourself. Buy tools from vendors and then build on top of that. So the way we think about Glean also is that you buy Glean, we're going to make it easy for you, really easy for you to actually make AI work on your business data. But still, to derive real value, only you and your employees know what are your business processes where you spend a lot of time, and how do you inject AI into those business processes. So I think of it as a build plus buy, is sort of the right strategy, where don't build what is common, right? That's the way how you should always think about technology. Common things that all companies will benefit from, you will get leverage by buying those products from vendors, and then I think today the great thing with AI is that you're still only buying AI infrastructure and some tools and capabilities, but getting real business success with it is where you're going to actually take your a business process at a time inside your company, and you're going to actually optimize that using AI, and in fact the AI tools are such that you don't have to be an engineer to actually bring about that transformation. It's very democratic in nature. So with Glean, we give people your business owners, somebody in your procurement team, somebody in your finance team, we give them all the capability to express their desires in English, and AI is quite good at actually taking that instruction and automating workflows for them, building great automation using AI with it. So we're seeing a lot of success now with this sort of hybrid approach where we bring the systems level technology, and then our customers bring the business know-how, and together is how you sort of make AI work to bring that amazing automation.
So do you think that future state of Glean looks more like Glean building best of breed applications where you think you're best suited for opening up the platform for large enterprises to build their own, and maybe you assist them, and then also maybe third party or other startups or other companies building on top of the Glean platform. Tell us more about what do you think the future looks like from a product perspective for you all?
That's a great question. So we're in fact focused on all three of those. The core part of Glean, is that we connect with, when you bring Glean into your enterprise, we are connecting Glean with all of your data systems, all of your unstructured data, all of your structured data. We can actually connect all of them through this one platform, which is now, think of it as an AI data stack, which is basically now ready to serve, all of that, internal data and knowledge to different AI applications that are going to be, that is going to get built inside your enterprise. We deliver like some applications ourselves. So, for example, we have a general purpose assistant, which we call Glean Assistant. That is very much like ChatGPT Enterprise, but with the additional power of having all of that enterprise context to answer questions for people. So that's a general purpose application that we think, you can immediately bring to all the people inside your company, and you start that AI education going on day one. Then, you will have your own internal teams. They will use our platform. You can think of our platform as a secure enterprise-wide RAG platform, and you can use it to both in a no-code way or using our APIs build your own custom AI applications. And in fact, the beauty there in my to me is that a business owner can now go and build those applications. They don't have to rely on or wait for an engineer or an analyst to actually do things for them, because playing with data, AI makes it so easy for you to do that. And then third, if you think about the future, in the future world, we're going to have a lot of SaaS applications. But all of those SaaS applications are going to be smart. They will have a lot of great smart features. But like building those smart features within those SaaS products, sometimes they would need to tap into data that's not within their own app. And so how do you make that happen? It doesn't make sense for like every SaaS application to build interconnections with like 1,000 other SaaS applications so that you can bring that data from those different systems to make AI work better in your own product. So we do believe that there's going to be this horizontal layer that is going to be required, that each of these SaaS applications can rely on to fetch whatever data they want to make AI work better in their own products. So we're already seeing that, like, a lot of applications like Miro, Sigma, they're actually using the Glean APIs to make smart AI features within their own product. So overall, that's sort of what we think as a future architecture, where Glean can sit as a horizontal AI platform, powering AI in SaaS apps, in apps that customers build, and also in our first-party applications that we give to them.
Maybe just really quick follow-up on that. Can you give us a quick example, maybe with Miro or one of the other companies, and then also in the enterprise, how people are using it, just tactically, how they're implementing this today?
Yeah. So let's say that, like, one of the things, with Sigma, this is an integration that I saw recently, is so in Sigma you can actually get a lot of let's say that's your BI tool. You can actually, for example, run a report and see your top 10 customers by some metric. And now when you're looking at those customers, you're seeing some structured data, you're seeing what your account value is and a few other things, but you want to see more context on that customer, right inside this report. So they build this integration with Glean, where when where you're in that report, and you hover over that customer, it'll also give you the latest information, like, for example, what new meetings, like recent meetings you had with those customers, who are the people interacting these days, have you saw, what's the sentiment, at that customer look like, and so much more information. That's all there in the enterprise somewhere, and that's it. That's a great time and place for somebody to be able to see all that information in one place. I'll give you one more example. Yeah. So imagine Zoom, and they have this AI companion inside the Zoom meetings. The AI companion actually, it tries to be helpful to you as you're running that meeting. So imagine I'm a salesperson trying to sell a product to you, and you ask me a question that, hey, does your product support feature X? And well, I'm a new salesperson, I don't really know the answer to that. But you ask the question, the Zoom AI companion actually heard that question, and it wants to actually show an answer to that question to me, so I can just read that and say that back to the customer. But to be able to do that, it has to figure out where that answer is, and that answer is probably like sitting somewhere in Google Drive or SharePoint or OneDrive. And so will Zoom build those integrations into all of those systems? Instead of that, they're going to use our API, send the question over to us because it was a product question, and we'll find the right answers from one of those different systems, give it back to them. Zoom shows it right there on that meeting screen, and the salesperson can go and say their answer back to the customer. So these are the kind of things where so you will realize that AI capabilities in products often need data and context that's outside of that individual system.
Right.
And so that's the power of, and that's what we can power through our horizontal AI platform.
And I think the key there is the fact that Glean has all the context for your specific organization versus being trained on external information. And one question I wanted to ask you on AI in particular is that you have obviously great providers with OpenAI, Anthropic, et cetera, and you can work with any model you want. What do you see as the role of open source LLMs in the future? How does that evolve in your worldview, and how do you think that impacts potentially how Glean would engage with them?
Yeah. So for, open source LLMs are going to play a big role in the future. Open source, first of all, it always wins, in some ways. So, there's so much energy and momentum and excitement around this. So I think even though this is a domain in which you need billions of dollars, to train models and all of that. So maybe the largest models will not be the ones that are going to be developed in open domain, but maybe Meta will keep bringing some of those models into and make it available to open source. But I think regardless of the largest models, there are a lot of small models that are actually very good for specific things. So even in if you think about Glean today, one of the core powers of Glean is that we are able to actually give the enterprise the ability to work with all of these different models. You don't have to go and sign large contracts with each one of those individual model providers. Like if you work through us, we have those contracts, behind the scenes. We also help you sort of use Llama if you want to, work with Llama, and so that makes it easy for an enterprise to actually get the best, out of AI. Different models are good at different things, and getting that sort of flexibility to use all of them, through Glean, actually is something that people love a lot. And I think in this library of models that we support, open source models are going to become, bigger and bigger part of, that catalog.
And we're in this very interesting moment of AI, which we've been discussing, and I'm curious, what is one thing that you think we're actually underhyping in AI if we fast forward 5-10 years from now?
Well, that's a very interesting question. I think underhyping in AI, I think people will say what are you talking about?
It's an oxymoron, I think. Yeah.
But I think as with any fundamental technology, you often overestimate the impact of it in short term and underestimate the impact of it in the long run. I think the kind of things that AI will do for us in the future, most people, I think it will be hard for them to imagine that today. I'm very confident that in 5 years from now, majority of the work that you do or I do, we won't be doing anymore.
Yeah.
And I think you can be skeptical about it, but that's the reality. Technology sort of makes things happen over a long time horizon, and we don't realize that we fundamentally change with technology. I'll give you a simple example. Go in the days before Google. Imagine if I asked you a question, what was the GDP of United Kingdom in 1983?
Right.
Well, if I asked you that question, in the pre-internet, pre-Google, you'd be very happy going to the library of your university and go through the archives and spend 3 to 4 hours, find the right newspaper, the right date, look at the data, and come back with an answer. It's totally acceptable for you to spend 4 hours or half a day on that question.
Right.
Today, like you will scoff at that. Like, you will actually not spend any more than 10 seconds on that question. Right? And we're not willing to do that work anymore. And the same thing is going to happen in the future. A lot of these things that we do as knowledge workers, complex tasks, analysis, that we think, require, that level of intelligence and, that only we possess. A lot of those things will expect, AI and software to do for us in the future.
Yeah.
So we're looking at a very, very fundamental change in terms of how we work, what we do. I don't even know how many people will be coding in Java anymore or Python anymore in 10 years from now. Well, I mean, and I can tell you that this happens. Like I used to program in assembly and then in C and then in C++ and then in Java and I've sort of felt becoming ancient myself. Those kind of things we don't do anymore.
No, I think the Google example really brings it home, and there's that Bill Gates quote of, we overestimate what technology will do in 1 year. I think some people are figuring that out, and I think we're underestimating what it will do in 10 years, and I think that that's very true. I wanted to end on a couple of personal questions about your own personal journey and your entrepreneurial journey. You've now been a part of so many great success stories. I mean, all the way from Riverbed to Rubrik, and now obviously Glean. Is there something now, as you look back, that there are common characteristics among some of these really high growth, successful outcomes that you've been a part of that now you can say these are the 1 or 2 or 3 attributes that all make sense across the whole set?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Actually, for the last 25 years, I've been part of 5 startups, early stage private companies, which all went IPO. And so somebody was telling me that, hey, I should actually become an investor. And so I think I would be terrible at that. But I tried to actually understand, what made me lucky. And I think, one explanation I have is that, I was thinking very simple. I was being lazy in terms of whenever I picked, what's the next company I would work at. I actually only focused on, is there a problem that impacts a large number of people? And if so, I would like to, I always want to go and solve that. And all the complex parts about TAM and margins and competition and all, I think everything sorts out. I think all you need is a problem that exists, that is large in nature, and if you go and build a good product and then a good team that can actually sell that product, I think success will come to you. So all the companies that I've been part of, they were sort of very simple like that. I'll give, just take some example. Take Akamai was the first one, and Akamai was actually making it easy for people to serve websites on the internet. If you have a video, if you have a rich media website, you just won't load on people's browsers, before we built that solution that made it easy for people to load it. So that was sort of obvious. Yes, I want fast websites, and so a simple problem to solve. And so as an engineer, that appealed to me, and I took that. As a good company that I wanted to work at.
Yeah. What do you think drives you? You touched upon this a little bit in terms of interesting problems and big problems, but curious at a fundamental level, what do you think really drives you as an entrepreneur? What does, when you look back at the arc of your career in 20 years or maybe 50 years from now, what do you think you'll be most proud of in terms of that journey?
Well, I think I think the thing that I get most kick out of is, number one, building a really good product and technology that actually makes a difference to somebody. Building something useful, that people use, is just so gratifying. I also love, I feel fortunate to be part of, these companies where I was able to work with great people, just enjoy the day with them. Solve complex challenges, and so that journey itself is actually very rewarding, to me. And then finally, it's about making success for people who you work with. That's actually one of the the biggest driving forces for me. When we achieve business success, when we see people succeed along with the business, that's such a gratifying feeling that makes me feel so proud of what we're accomplishing.
Oh, that's amazing. And I know I've known you for enough time now that I think that a lot of the attributes that you have, you're driven, you're competitive, you're intellectually engaged, you're a problem solver. If you look across folks who have graduated from IIT, I know that your alma mater as well, there's a lot of folks who have come out who have obviously become very successful entrepreneurs, and they all seem to be driven by a very similar set of things in some ways. Curious if you reflect back on those early days in college or in your upbringing generally. What is it about that ecosystem that has created such a great petri dish for phenomenal entrepreneurs in the future?
Yeah, yeah. I think we were very fortunate to go through that journey, at IIT. These are small engineering schools in India, and it's very competitive to get in. And the first thing that you learn, in that college is, survival. You come in, it's a rough place in many ways. It's not a supportive system. You have to work hard. You have to actually compete with a lot of other hardworking and smart students. And because if you don't get a good score, then you don't have a future. And so I think part of that, I think going through that journey at IIT, I think made everybody stronger in terms of this sort of it sort of strengthens your competitive spirit, and also of course you're getting great education, you're learning a lot about technology, and you're also getting a lot of opportunity. I think I think for all of us, a path was established. You learn from people who did that, went to the school a year before you, 2 years before you, and we automatically get put into this sort of this train of which is you complete your education, then you go to the US, you learn here, either you go into college or go to the industry, and you have a great network too, of people who are always there to sort of help you. And part of it is I think being an immigrant, when you come here, you are starting a new life, and I think your circle is actually these you end up having this great network of these people, because all of us are sort of uprooted in some sense from our community into this new world. So there's the sense of community is also very strong within the IIT, and that's how you sort of get inspired. You see successes of other people, and that makes you want to sort of also do something big in your career. So for me it has been fundamental. I think whatever I've been able to achieve in my jobs, I think being part of that system has actually helped me quite a bit.
It's amazing. And maybe last question, we all stand on the shoulders of other people and you've been alluding to this.
Yeah.
Is there one parent, teacher, mentor along the path that you think of when you say, where you are today, who really made an impact and got you to inflect in a way that may not have happened if you hadn't crossed paths with them?
Yeah, there's so many folks like that. I think they all played a different role for me. Some of them were just inspirational. They were they're not approachable, but we saw their success, folks who were with the same background, achieve big things. If you look at Vinod, he was a celebrity, and you saw how he built very successful large companies, and so that sort of serves as inspiration. Then I've in my own career, I've had great the fortune of having really amazing managers who believed in me more than I believed in myself. Right. And that was actually illuminating for me. When you hear that confirmation from people who are more accomplished, that you can actually also do something useful. I always grew with this sort of personality of self-doubt. So that was very incredibly helpful for me. My managers, some of them Koss and Bill, at Google, they sort of instilled a new degree of confidence in me, which allowed me to sort of then go and take these big steps. Yeah. Also my own, my peers, my companions, at Rubrik, for example, I learned a lot from Bipul, who who showed that we can actually achieve more. When we started Rubrik, I never thought that we would achieve that level of success that we did. But he always believed from day one that we were going to be achieving that level of success. So I think it's just like being around people, like there's so many of them who I've learned so much from, and continue to learn from them.
No, it's amazing. Well, this has been absolutely incredible as expected, and it's been a pleasure to be a partner on this journey when this was just called SIO, and it's been, I think, just the beginning in terms of where the company's headed. And thank you for sharing your insights with us, and a lot more to come.
Thank you for having me on, Saf. Really appreciate this.